Hi, I'm Jim Barry. Today is Friday, February 18th. It's about 5 o'clock in Belchertown Town Hall. I am a selectman. We're in the selectman's meeting room. I'm here to answer some questions and make some comments about the issues that have been bubbling up in Belchertown via the selectman's board. First, I want to say thank you to the members of the press who are here. Those of you who are watching via the tape on the web. Thanks to Mike Seward for doing this for us. We would have liked to have Channel 5 here, but as you may or may not know, Peg and Lou are out of town on their annual ski trip, so Mike has promised to share the tape with Channel 5. We also have John Appleton from the Republican, Amy Henderson from the Sentinel, and Amy Tillese from the Gazette. I want to thank them for coming. This is clearly a nice gesture on their part to get the story from the horse's mouth. And I also want to thank the supporters. I've been very happy with the number of phone calls I've been getting, emails I've been getting. Clearly we've been getting a lot of comment from those who are unhappy with my decision, but quite a few people that have gone out of their way to send supporting words, and I want to thank them. In fact, one of them called, and we have caller ID, so we don't talk to everybody, but someone called that my wife recognized, and so she picked up the phone, and this person happened to say, some of the things they're saying about Jim are awful. They're saying he's arrogant. And Pat said, he's not arrogant, he's Irish. So for those of you who know any Irishmen or know any arrogant people, you'll know that there really isn't much of a difference. I've got a few answers to probable questions I'd like to just sort of get out there, and then I'm going to open it up to the reporters to ask whatever they want, and I'll answer it as well as I can. Is that fair? Okay. So the first thing I want to say with regards to why did I vote yes on a motion to not renew the contract. And the first thing I want to say is there is no smoking gun. Okay, so the citizens of Belchertown can rest assured that there's not some terrible things going on down at the police station and there's this big cover. That's not why I voted not to renew his contract. The thing about the contract, the thing about the police position, is it is a contractual position. It's not a union position. It's not a personal bylaw position. There's only 2 contract positions in the town of Belchertown, and the chief of police is one of them. And the contract has a fixed duration. It has a start point and an end point. And it has a special clause called non-renewal. What would we do as a board if we chose to not renew the contract? There are other parts of the contract that also speak to termination and termination for cause and what that process is. And the fact that there's 2 separate sections of the contract, one that speaks about what do you do if you have to fire him for cause, and another section that just says what do you want to do if you're just going to not renew the contract. The fact that there's 2 sections of the contract is clear proof that you can certainly choose to not renew the contract without cause. There doesn't have to be a smoking gun or a warm gun. The fact that you can vote yes or no on a non-renewal is a judgmental issue. It's not a for-cause issue. It's not a let's get the lawyers in the room and do evidentiary stuff. It's a judgmental decision. And over the past 10 years, I've gotten to know the chief on a variety of instances, some in public, some in this room as he spoke to before the Board of Selectmen, some in the back room when we've talked with the chief about his contract or the union contract or union grievances. So I've had a chance to interact with the chief, observe the chief in ways that most of you have not. That's good news and bad news. There's probably some things about the chief that I know that are wonderful that you don't know. Based on the totality of my experience with the chief, weighing the pros and cons of the chief's evaluation, I guess is one word to use, I have come to the conclusion that it is better to not renew the contract. The town should be run like a business. We selectmen serve on the executive board, if it were, of a business. It is our job to seek out the best, absolute best people we can for all positions. And based on my knowledge of the man, based on my ability to say yes or no to a potential new contract, I have decided that it's best to say no. I will tell you that this last time that we had this conversation about to renew or not to renew the contract was not the first time we've had this conversation. This is, I think, the third or the fourth contract with the chief I've been involved with. And every time we've had a situation where the contract is about to expire or not to expire, and we've had a conversation about do we automatically renew it or not, I've discussed my concerns with the board, the rest of the board, about should we renew it. And I've always said from the very first that the size of the town, the size of the department, my knowledge of the job that the man's doing down there leads me to the conclusion that we would be well off with a new man. It's not a decision I come to lightly. It's not something I take easily. In the past, when we've had these conversations in the executive office, often, well, I'm trying to remember each case. One time I brought it up, I was the only one who thought so. The other four members said no, we're going to walk down the path. Another time I brought up, there was two of us in the room that said, you know, maybe we should consider another way to go. Just past November, December, when we had this conversation again, there was 3 votes that said, let's exercise our right in the contract to send the man a note that says we are not going to automatically renew your contract July 1. Because if we didn't do it by December 31st, he would automatically get a 12-month extension of the old contract. So we sent that letter saying that it's not a guarantee that we're going to do a contract in time. So the next question is, well, why not, Jim? Right? What's wrong? You say there's no smoking gun. Well, what is it? I'm not going to tell you. There are many reasons. There's many kinds of reasons that led me to that conclusion. Some of those things that I have learned and led me to that conclusion, I've learned in executive session, so I cannot tell you. Legally, things that we learn in executive session, and that's the only place we have learned them, we cannot divulge them until the minutes of that meeting have made them public. And they don't get made public until the issue is resolved, and if the chairman of the board, with the consent of the rest, decide to release the minutes of an executive session. So many of the things I've learned, I've only learned in executive session, and I cannot tell you. There are other things that I've learned outside of executive session that I won't tell you because I'm not sure that it's ethically right. You know, if you've been in political office for any length of time, you're going to get phone calls. You're going to hear a lot of things from a lot of people. And some of it you can take with a large grain of salt, and some of it you take very seriously, sometimes based on the source. Or multiple stories. You as reporters probably get this as much as I get. You will get calls and people will tell you stuff, and you'll have to weigh it and decide what to do with it. And so I have learned quite a few things about the chief from others that I'm not going to tell you, because I don't think it would be right to tell you. There are other things that I've learned that I could tell you that I've learned just man on man, one-on-one. I'm also not going to tell you about those issues, and here's why. The chief has a contract today. The chief is the chief of police today. It is highly likely the chief is going to get a new contract. For me to tell you the things that I have concerns about that add up to a decision for me to not renew the contract, for me to tell you those things would be a negative on the chief, they'd be a negative on the department, they would add to the discord in the community. The only good that could come of it, of me telling you this detail, would be I'd feel a little bit better about getting it off my chest. Some people would feel a little bit better about, oh my God, at least he's got a reason. But the bad to the chief, to his family, to the department, to the town, I'd rather have you think I'm an evil guy and I have some ulterior motives than to give you that stuff, that dirt, that things that are not a smoking gun, that are not likely to get him fired because of lawyers involved, but in total lead me to the conclusion that we could use a different chief. And I think I'll pause here, because I think those are the main topics I want to cover, and invite questions, and I don't know. Sure. Mike?
Were you expecting this blowback after your initial decision from the community?
I certainly knew that many people would be upset. I absolutely did. Like I said earlier, this is not an easy decision. Every time this topic has come up in the past over the contract, and we have an opportunity to vote yes or no, do we even consider renewing the contract? As I said, I've come to the conclusion each time to not go forward, but I've never not reconsidered it. So for instance, this past year I can tell you that it was harder to say no because he has improved. Clearly he has improved in many ways. Do I always expect some people to like what I do and others not to? Yeah, of course, because I've been here long enough to know that. Amy from the Gazette, for those of you watching at home.
Nope. Sentinel.
Oh, sorry.
Two Amy's here, though.
I'm not going to get this right. I should make you guys.
So there's not one specific incident, but there's, as you say, a compounded bunch. Is it a concern for people then? Will that affect how he can effectively run the police department? I mean, are they so concerning? Clearly, you don't think he should be chief. Will it affect the way he runs the
I did not
department?
say I don't think he's capable of being a chief.
Okay.
Let's be real clear. I don't think he should be fired tomorrow for cause. I'm exercising my option as an executive officer, renewing people's contracts to say, should we just automatically renew this contract, or should we put it out there and try to find someone? My personal preference from day one, when he was hired, I thought, I think the town would do better with someone from outside the town. He's been here forever. That's my personal opinion. There are others on the board and in town that says, you're crazy. Promoting from within is absolutely the right way to go, and this is the guy, he knows the town. It's a difference of opinion on how to manage your personnel. And these decisions aren't easy. I don't think that my vote has had a negative impact on the morale in the police department. I have had some contact with some police officers, and I haven't called them all. It's not my job to call them all. I don't even think it's appropriate for me to call them all. But the contact I've had is said, we're okay down there. There is some concern about the whole noise going around with the recall, and as you may or may not know, there's some ugliness occurring on my other friend's website. But I don't think it's impacting the job being done by the officers.
So no public safety concern?
I don't have a public safety concern, no. If I thought that my actions would be a public safety concern, no, I'd just shut my mouth.
But do you have any concerns about him continuing as chief, as a resident of Belchertown?
No.
So it's just about you thought you could do better?
Better is a relative term. I guess I hate to say that we could do better, but that may be shorthand that some may take out of it. Again, if we were in a large corporation, we had multiple vice presidents and senior vice presidents and CEOs and CIOs and CFOs all under contract. When their contract was up, wouldn't it behoove the decision-making authority to say, okay, now, where are we as a company? Where are we going? Do we have the right people in place? Should we automatically renew the contract or look at something else? And I think that the town has doubled in population since I've been in town. The police department has gotten larger. They've moved from that tiny little building next to McCarthy's to a building. I mean, this is and I'm not saying he can't handle a job, John. I'm not saying that.
You said with the town growing and moving forward, is there something specific that you're looking to see happen within the police department that isn't happening? Maybe? In other, are you comparing us to other communities?
Again, this is, I fully suspect that based on what little I know today, that there's at least 3 votes to give the gentleman a new contract. I also suspect that there will be an opportunity in the contract conversations and/or going forward that I could be maybe more explicit with the chief about my feelings of where he could use improvement or what programs I think he should emphasize over others. And that's a conversation I should have with him, not with you. Because this is a personnel issue. It's not a personal issue. This is about how you deal with personnel at a senior level, not Jim against Fran. I like the guy. I think he's done a pretty good job.
So then if it is a personnel issue as opposed to a personal issue, in the contract negotiations, do you think that expressing your concerns and making suggestions for how he could better steer the department, do you think those are things that could be built into the contract?
The existing contract calls for performance review. I think it's supposed to occur in the winter. So for those of you who have worked in jobs where you have to do performance reviews, you'll know that based on your boss in your company, some of those are done very well and very explicitly and very well. In other towns, other positions, I've had a position where I was reviewed by someone who just went through some checklists and did anything. So there is in the contract a mechanism for this activity. And this past year was the first time we actually did it. The Board of Selectmen had an executive session meeting where we made some suggestions about what we thought the review process should be. Ron Aponte is a chairman of our Board of Selectmen and is the liaison to the Chief of Police and has some experience in this in his corporate life. So he did do a performance review with the chief that was better than our previous efforts with previous liaisons. So my specific concerns or issues or directions would not be written into the contract, but rather the contract would be written to make sure that we do it, and that maybe I have an opportunity and the chief has an opportunity to become more clear about those issues. Does that help? Yes, sir.
Get into the recall, in the event that the
Can
town...
we save that for a little bit later?
Okay,
Because the follow-up question is, what am I going to do about it? And I just soon leave those towards the end.
okay, fair enough. Chief Fox has stated on a number of occasions to the press and elsewhere that he doesn't know why the board originally
Yeah. That's
voted
fair.
not to extend his contract. Is that consistent with your understanding of events?
Yes and no. So it's probably absolutely true that your chief and I have not sat down and I told him exactly what's going on. That's absolutely true. It's not probably true. That is true. But as a Board of Selectmen, operating as an executive branch, with a liaison and a town administrator, we don't individually get on there and tell them what to do. There have been numerous executive sessions where the board has directed the liaison to say something to the chief. And in each of those cases, the liaison has reported back to us, yes, I had talked to the chief about this. I made it perfectly clear. So in my opinion, some of my concerns were directed to the liaison, who told me he directed them to the chief of police. Now, if the chief is saying, and I don't want to guess what he's saying, but if the chief is saying, I don't know of any smoking gun that causes me to get fired, well, I would agree with that. Does he know of some of my concerns over the years? I think he does. I think it's, but whether he and I sat down one-on-one to do it, no, we have not. But we don't operate that way. And I don't think it's right for me to, and for others, to drop in every other Tuesday or something and say, hey, you know what you ought to be doing? You know, that's not the way to run the chief of police. He's a strong chief, that's a legal term. There are weak chiefs and strong chiefs. He is a strong chief. He's allowed to do, he's got a pretty long leash. And our contact with him has been primarily through the town administrator and many issues, many day-to-day issues. Things that get a little bit more sticky with regards to union issues, because the town administrator's son is also in the union. We direct those to the liaison, and the liaison has those conversations. So I can understand the chief being able to say, you know, I really don't know why they're getting rid of me, but I can also say to you, there have been comments directed towards him via the liaison that I'm absolutely certain of.
And the chief's contract, you're still in negotiations for the new contract, correct? Or has he accepted what was offered? Or do you know, or can you not say?
My understanding is that we have not accepted a new contract.
On that subject, will you personally stay out of the contract negotiations, or will you participate?
It's very difficult for me to be in a room and be silent. So, during the executive session where the contract is being discussed, if there's an element in the contract that I would wish to make I certainly will. Now, whether or not I should vote on the contract, interesting question that I hadn't considered. In the past, I have voted on the contract, even though I have said I don't think we should give a new contract. I think we'd go in another direction. When it came to the contract, well, if I'm outvoted and we're going to give him a contract, well, then I should weigh in on the contract. And I think most contracts in the past have been unanimous. That based on a negotiation process, based on a give and take, we end up with a document that the chief is happy with, the board as a whole is happy with, and so the final vote, I think, in every case has been unanimous. I don't think there's a reason not to be.
When you say we have not accepted a new contract, do you mean the board of selectmen
Yeah,
has not accepted
so
a
we-
signed contract from him? Or you haven't agreed, because I had the impression after Monday night that, from what the chairman told me, that the terms of the contract had been agreed to by this board and were presented, because he said that to the chief for his consideration.
Thank you for that clarifying question. So, in the last executive session, the board voted, there was a majority of the board that voted in favor of offering a specific draft contract that he could accept if he wishes. And if he had accepted, it would have been accepted by that majority. I cannot tell you that he has accepted it or rejected it out of hand. I do know that there's another executive session scheduled for Tuesday night. I suspect that the contract is a topic of conversation because it's Mass General Law Section 6, I think, which covers contracts. So I can't tell you if he's accepted or rejected or made a counteroffer. Often the way it goes, as you probably can guess, is one side puts together a contract and the guy marks up with a red pen and hands it back, and then you mark it up with a green pen and you hand it back, and he marks it up with a blue pen, and so I don't know. Did I answer the question?
I mean, it was told us that there was a package offered to them.
Yes.
Whether it was specified in writing or not.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it absolutely was.
That he would have something in his hands now to be considering.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that did happen. Yes.
If he says this is okay with me, he can give it back to
Yes,
the
sir.
board. So,
And I guess we'll learn Tuesday night what his decisions. Yep. Yeah, the ball is clearly in his court. Yes, sir.
You said in your opening statement that you've been receiving a lot of supportive emails and phone calls.
Yeah.
Have you been acknowledged going the other way? Less than supportive phone calls and emails?
I have not gotten any hate calls or hate emails. I have not. A couple of calls were supportive of the chief. Some told me of a personal instance where the chief has been extraordinarily helpful. But the call also said, but you know, Jim, I know how you operate, and I don't suspect that you're doing this for not out of good reason. So I'm going to support you, however decision you make, which to me is, I mean that's, as an elected official, you can't ask for anything more than that. That's pretty amazing.
you've talked about this as if it were a corporate board decision, making the best decision for the company, and that's the way those things are done. But it isn't a corporate board. Do you have any concerns that the actions that the board took, that you took, could have hurt the chief's reputation? Because it certainly, an awful lot of people jump to the conclusion, well, if there's something wrong, why don't, what is it that's wrong? What's wrong about the chief of police?
Yeah, that's a good question, John. I certainly didn't intend it. As Mike asked earlier, did I expect such a big blow back, whatever the word he used? And the answer is no, I did not expect that violent a reaction. I was doing what I had done in the past, namely expressing my concern about the issue to my fellow board members. And in the past, it hasn't gotten public because there was never 3 votes. I think that if the chief were to, if the board had decided to not renew the contract and gone forward with that, and I had been a bit more clear perhaps earlier as I've been trying to be clear tonight, then maybe there would not have been such a backlash. Maybe it would not have been so divisive. But I have to wonder to what extent there are some folks in town that are very happy that I'm in the hot seat. There are some folks in town that don't like me, don't like my positions, and that's okay. As I say, if you've been here a while, you're going to make some decision that's going to annoy one person, and you make another decision that's going to annoy a different person. Eventually, there's a group of people that you've annoyed at one time or another. I think there is a small group in town that have always been opposed to my having been elected, and I wonder to what extent they're using this and the public's natural affection for the chief, the public's natural support for the chief of police. I wonder if there aren't some people taking advantage of that in stirring the pot and lighting the fire and throwing gas in the fire purposely. To what end? I wonder about that, and I guess I don't know the answer to it, but it does make me pause.
Question, if 3 of you came to the same conclusion that it was best for the town to go in another direction,
Yes, sir.
how do you feel about 2 of the 3 switching positions after the recall started?
I don't think I have a comment on that. This is not about them. I'm trying to get out what I did and why I did it to the public to help answer that question. I've been trying not to say a lot of negative words about the chief because there's no reason to. Again, that would only build me up and tear him down, and there's no positive to come out of that. There's no reason for me to say pluses or minuses about the other board members. I mean, I think I mentioned earlier, Ron Aponte probably knows as much about the chief as I do, and he thinks when you weigh the pluses and minuses, the pluses clearly come on top. I don't hate Ron Aponte for that. I disagree with him in the final decision, but he and I disagree on quite a few things. So, if a board member changes their mind, well, then they change their mind. Recall question?
Yeah, if in fact that the town clerk's office does certify that they received 500 signatures for your recall, for a recall election, and they notify the Board of Selectmen, would you resign?
Well, let's see, how strongly can I say hell no?
Okay, and if they did, if a removal election did happen and you were voted off the board, you do have the right to run and succeed yourself. Would you do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you do intend to run again?
I have no intention of being bullied out of the position that the majority of elected voters put me in. I have no intention of being bullied out of here by this process. My understanding is if there is a recall election, and there probably will be, my expectation is it will happen the same day as a regular election. My understanding is on the recall portion of the ballot, there is, do you want to recall James Barry? Yes or no? And then there's a room for who would you replace him with? John Doe or James Barry?
Okay.
My intention is to be on the ballot under the recall position, and my intention is to take out papers to run for re-election. My understanding is I could lose the recall, and if I won the re-election, I'm still a selectman the day after, because the recall is for my current term, which ends the day after the election. Which leads me to the question of, why are they recalling me? If they have such a huge problem with me, pick a candidate and defeat me in the re-election. Save the town the expense, because this is costing us money. Trust me, The town clerk was on the phone a long time with town council to make sure this was done properly and legally. He didn't just sit down and say, geez, I wonder how to do this. So we've spent a fair amount of legal fees already. There's been some expense involved in the town. There's been some extraordinarily divisiveness in the town. There's been some explicit instances of bullying outside the Stop and Shop, with people trying to get into the Stop and Shop. I've got phone calls from people saying, I went to the Stop and Shop, there was this guy that tried to shove this clipboard in my hand and says, do you support the chief of police? And she said, yeah, of course. Well, sign this to get rid of that Jim Barry. Well, no, I know Jim Barry, I'm not signing that. Well, why not? You support the chief, right? I mean, so, since they could easily get rid of me on May 16th by putting up a strong candidate, and they can't get rid of me through the recall petition, you have to wonder, what else are they thinking of? Are they trying to bully the other two selectmen who aren't up for re-election into give the guy the contract he wants, or we're going to recall you too, because they haven't filed their papers yet? Is that the intention? Is the intention to put a chilling effect on others who might choose to run for election? Are you likely to run for election for selectmen and go through what I'm going through? Are you? Is that part of the intention? I mean, you'd have to think, I don't want to think that evil. But considering that there was a simple way to remove me, put up a strong candidate, tell everybody what an idiot I am, get them to vote me out, the traditional way, in the exact same time frame, why would you go through the recall? Why would you put the town through that divisiveness, that expense, unless there's something else going on? And I don't know what it is. You probably should ask them. Have the camera running. I'd like to see the answer. Yes, ma'am.
If you remain on the board after all is said and done.
When I remain on the board.
When you remain short. Should people have concerns that you might not support the police department
Absolutely
in
not.
entirety?
Absolutely not. My father was a policeman. I have a strong support for all police officers, no matter where they are, no matter what position they are. That's one of the reasons for my dilemma with the chief. My father was a spectacular man. He rose through the ranks and became captain. He was this close to being chief. He came in second on the civil service exam. In Pittsfield, the chief is not decided by 3 bozos on the board. Rather, it was decided by, I think, 5 city council members and the mayor, with the weight being placed heavily on the civil service exam. My father came in second on the civil service exam. The guy who came in first was also a good human being, a good policeman. And the mayor took the easy way out and hired the guy at the top of the list. It's okay. The integrity level of my father, the 24/7 attitude of my father, the values he instilled in me, forces me to set the bar very high. That's not to say that Fran Fox is a bad man. It's to say that my expectations for any chief are very high. And I think we should search for someone who can meet those expectations. I don't think there's anything wrong in that. I don't think there's anything evil in me in saying that.
So you definitely plan to take out papers for the next term, for the next 3-year term, is that?
Yes, sir. I would have done it today, but I got here too late.
Do you know if there's any legal or practical sense to taking out, I mean, ordinarily a recall has what you just described. If the recall succeeded, there has to be names on the ballot, which could include the recall target.
Yes.
But in this case,
Recall target. That's an excellent phrase, by the way.
well, in this case, there's no sense to it. I mean,
So you're absolutely right. I could ignore the recall piece of it and simply run for re-election, and it wouldn't matter what happened with the recall. I could do that.
well, it matters. It's political, it's symbolic, it's
Oh,
very
I'm not-
serious.
I'm absolutely
But
going
it's a
to.
practical matter for how many minutes you serve on the Board of Selectmen. I don't know that it matters. You mentioned the day before, but I seem to recall the people being sworn in the night the
Sure.
votes are counted.
Yeah.
So, do you know if you're gonna take out papers to be the,
Replacement of the target of the recall?
Yes.
I will do whatever it takes legally with the town clerk to get my name on the ballot, both for re-election and on the recall side of the ballot. Yes.
Do you think
And if that sounds like an arrogant Irishman, well then I'm guilty.
Do you think this will be a topic then? Do you think there'll be continued
Absolutely.
efforts to talk about the reasons why you took the action?
Perhaps.
you did?
Perhaps part of the reason to ask you all here together, so you all get the same information, you can disseminate it as you wish. Mike is taping this for his website. I think I've given as much detail as I'm ever going to give on the topic. I think I've explained why I don't want to go into more detail. And so future questions about this throughout the campaign or not throughout the campaign, I hope I remain consistent with the same answers.
So you can anticipate a campaign in which somebody is running against you hard on this issue, and you'll say nothing further than you have said.
It is my intention to take the high road because there is no benefit to me listing those issues I have a concern about. There's no benefit to anyone except me. And I'm willing to face that rather than harm the chief in the department because there's nothing good can come of it, John. I could say lots of terrible things. He's still going to be the chief, so it doesn't make any sense for me to do that. It's not fair to him, it's not fair to the town, it's not fair to his family. So if I can absorb the negative instead, okay. Okay.
Do you think that those, I'm sorry, Jen, are you done? Do you think those seeking your recall, obviously basing it on one decision, at least that they've voiced, do you think that that's, to use baseball terms, playing small ball?
I'm sorry, I don't
Do you think that
understand.
it's too tight and narrow a focus? Do you think it's that they're not looking at the big picture and what's good for the town?
I hesitate to think what they're thinking. You raised the question you're really raising is, why does recall exist? What's an appropriate use of that vehicle? My understanding, when it was presented to town meeting some years ago, because as you probably know, not every town has a recall bylaw. The town of Belchertown had to accept this and put it into the bylaw, whether or not we're going to even have recalls. Some years ago, before it was passed, you could not recall a selectman. It just didn't exist. So in that process of debating why would we want a recall, often the reason given was you could have someone who still has a year or two left in their term, and they've done something so outrageous that you need to recall them. So the other way to ask your question is a selectman who exercises his right to vote no on a motion to renew a contract, is that sufficient for a recall? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. Because to me, the selectman's doing what he's trying to do. Is there evil intent? Is there corruption? Is there money involved? I don't know. But the recall situation is set so you certainly this was allowed. Whatever words they used on the petition, which I didn't get a chance to read, so I'm not exactly sure. You have to give a reason. You have to sign an affidavit saying that for this reason we wish to recall him, and I think it was something related to not following the will of the people. I don't know if that's the case, because I don't know that's the will of the people that I didn't follow. I mean, post-recall petition, they can say that they've got quite a few signatures, but does every one of those signatories say, oh, by the way, he's not following the will of the people? Or what they're really saying is, we support the chief of police? I don't know. I haven't seen the signatures. I asked for a copy of them. They said that a copy cannot be made public until after they certify at least 500 signatures. Once they do that, it becomes a public document, and I'll be able to get a copy, take a look at it. I suspect there's people on there whose name I know and whom I thought were supporters, and I'll give them a call and say, what's up? What's up?
The way you talked about the decision that you made, to vote the way you did in terms of the contract, each of the years, while you haven't gone into details, it's always sounded like this was a managerial decision on your part about a manager at a different level in the town government. And you said nothing about whether the chief did anything corrupt, dishonest, illegal. So are you sitting here today saying that as far as you know, the chief did, I mean, do you have, are you saying that the chief did nothing that you're aware of that was corrupt, dishonest, or illegal?
Are you asking me if I'm ducking my responsibility to push an illegal action to the proper conclusion?
No, I'm just asking you because, you know, he's not because people react to this
Sure.
job in a way they don't react if it was,
DPW director.
Yeah.
Exactly right. You're exactly right.
People,
That's a fair question.
people could live.
That's fair. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be flip. I think it goes back to my first statement, which there is no smoking gun. There's not even a warm gun. I don't think that there's anything that he's done that's illegal or corrupt or violent or vicious or that causes me to go to the lawyers and say, we gotta start an investigation. I don't think that the citizens should be afraid of the chief of police or the police department because of this. Is that
That's what
explicit enough of an answer?
that's what I was asking.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be flip.
And just because I'm pretty new to town, can you tell me just how long you've been in town and how long you've served on the board and, just 'cause I don't know those
Sure.
that background information.
First thing I'll say is, I don't want to turn this into a political campaign event, which is, and take advantage of the
Sure.
camera. I'm happy to sit down with you outside, give you my background and why I'm running again and why you should vote for me. Because you're a citizen, right? You a registered voter?
Yeah, I moved into
Wow.
town 2 weeks ago.
Get yourself registered. And then I'll tell you everything you need to know about Jim
Alright.
Barry, and you can decide to vote yes or no.
Sounds good.
Are we done?
But you would be running for your fourth term as a selectman.
Incorrect.
Third term?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Last bite at the apple? Last bite at the apple?
I'm good.
Last bite at the apple?
Mhm.
Last bite at the
Why
apple?
is it so important? Why is it so important for you to keep representing and serving the town as a selectman?
Again, I don't want to turn this into a campaign commercial, but.
No, I don't mean
but,
it from that aspect.
But you seem pretty adamant of, I'm gonna put my name below the recall and I'm gonna take the
Absolutely.
papers again and.
Because I'm not going to allow them to bully me off the board. I don't want to set that precedent, I don't want to walk away. It'll make it harder for the other two selectmen who are currently being bullied and being challenged. And it will make it more difficult for good people like you to run. Do you want to go through this? If I cave in, what's that going to do? I will tell you that a month ago when John asked me, are you running for re-election? I said, I don't know. I'm a firm believer in people should not hold the office forever. 6 years, 9, 12, I don't, 12 years I think is way too many, quite frankly. So after 6 I was thinking, maybe that's enough. And I was debating it, and one of the concerns I had was there's 2 brand new rookies on the board who've only been here not quite a year, and one who's only been here a year. And if I leave and there's another rookie, that's... Can I give it 3 more years to the town? Yeah, I can. And I'll tell you this, I'm not running for a term after that. I'll tell you right now. Because 9 will be plenty. Somebody else can have a shot at it. And by then, these other guys will have a couple of years under their belt. Because when you first come on, there's a lot of stuff you have no clue about. When I first came on the board, I thought it was easy. I used to sit out there and criticize and from the peanut gallery and throw spitballs. And you get on here and you say, holy, there's a lot of stuff to do to chip. And You're not sure even how to balance it. So having someone who's been through it for a couple of years is useful. Linda Barron was very kind to me when I was on the board the first year. She'd been on 117 years or something like that. I don't know. She'd been here forever. So that's it. So I was on the fence about running for the third term anyway. And when this came up, I said, there's no way I'm walking away.
So my follow-up to that would be, is your decision strictly to show that you won't be bullied, or is it also
It's
because you
both.
think
It's
you can
both.
still
It
do
was
it?
both. Because like I say, I was on the fence, and the major concern I had was having two folks with only one mentor, namely Ron Aponte. Because he'd be the senior guy. He'd be the guy that bring him up. And quite frankly, Ron and I disagree on quite a few things. And I'm not sure I want to leave the playing field to what. There must be a sports metaphor for that, right? Where you walk off and leave the field to the other guy. I don't know. Maybe it's a gladiator metaphor. I don't know. Sorry. So it wasn't just this that pushed me over the edge. I mean, my wife will tell you, it's a, for those of us who serve the public as conscientiously as we can, it's a non-trivial task. It takes a lot of work and effort and hours, and I put those hours in. And some days I've said, I've done my time, but I'll give it another 3 years. And they'll be good ones.
Are you confident you'll win?
Absolutely. Oh, is that arrogant?
Do you expect you'll have people coming out to run against you specifically because of this incident?
I suspect that there's been people who've been considering running against me for some time, and this would be a great opportunity that they think they can take advantage of. Yes, I do think that.
Will you challenge anybody who comes up against you? Will you challenge their motivation for seeking the office?
Boy, that's a tough question. I hope I don't. I mean, I'm not a perfect guy. I get angry at people just like we all do. When I'm here as a selectman, I try to breathe in, breathe out. I do. Am I likely to do it? Am I likely to say to them, you're just running? I might do that. I certainly would not do anything in my literature or in my, I would not publicly cast aspersions on someone else's motivation, because anybody who wants to run for this job, that's a, God bless them, regardless of motivation. I hope I'm a better person than that, but I'm not making any promises. I'm just a guy.
What finally made you want to answer questions? You've been pretty quiet up until now.
Yeah, I think it relates to what Mike had said earlier. I wasn't expecting all this noise. I wasn't expecting all this disinformation being passed around. And it dawned on me I owe the public a little bit more than I had previously given. I considered talking to my friend John, because John and I go back some time. I considered talking to Mike, because Mike has been all over town with his camera. And then it dawned, when I started thinking, I said, well, I really should invite you two in, because you cover a part of the town. You'll notice I did not invite the Springfield television stations.
Why?
Why would I? They only come for the train wrecks. They're not here to cover the good things we do in town. They're not going to sit here and for an hour like you folks did and write a comprehensive story. They'll put 30 seconds on there, and it will be something like, they'll take 2 or 3 of these sentences that I've said that maybe I shouldn't have said, and that will be the headline. And so, no, I'm not doing that.
From here on out, do you welcome questions from residents and media alike?
I've pretty much welcomed questions and comments from the people from the very first time I ran for an election, which was the Housing Authority, some 6 + 7 + 5 is what, 15 years? I go to a transfer station every other Saturday. I go to the post office. I go to Stop and Shop. People stop me in front of the milk Because I'm standing trying, what milk did she tell me to get? Am I supposed to get the 1% or 2%? I don't like 1%. Can I get the, people come up and talk to me. So, do I welcome comments? Sure. Should people expect to get more detailed information than I've given you tonight? No, because I don't think that's right. I got a couple of phone calls this afternoon that says, so just between you and I, what's up? So I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you. That's not to say that if this gets uglier, if you can believe it, if whoever decides to run against me chooses to make this a much bigger issue, are there people who know things that I know that weren't in executive session? Might that part of it get out? Maybe. Is that going to help the chief? No. I hope that those that have started the fire have considered that issue. I'm not the only guy who knows everything. Okay? A lot of stuff I know was given to me. Most of those folks give it to me because they know I'm not going to say nothing, and I'll do what I can to make it right. And are scared to death to go to you and tell you stories. I didn't ask for this room to be filled with my supporters, although I certainly could have. I certainly could have. I don't want them on TV or on camera, because some of the opposition really believe it's black and white, you and me, for the chief, against Barry. Why would I ask my supporters to go through that? No, there's no reason for it. What I say to my supporters are, register to vote and show up. That's all. The rest will take care of itself.